Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are joining me from. This is Annie Altamirano, and this is my YouTube channel, Empowering Teachers Worldwide. Today, I would like to talk a little bit about multicultural poets and how to bring these multicultural perspectives into our classroom. First of all, before we begin, I would like you to think, when was the last time one of your students surprised you with a connection between their home culture and an English text you were teaching, or wrote something mixing their mother tongue with English, not from confusion, but because English alone couldn't really capture the meaning of what they wanted to say? These moments reveal something really profound about what our multicultural, multilingual students bring to our classrooms. So today, I would like to explore how contemporary multicultural poets transform these linguistic crossroads into literary power, how we can use their work to validate and celebrate our students' complex identities. Um, as someone who is originally Argentinian, that is Argentinian born, but with Spanish, Argentinian, and Belgian roots, now living in Spain with grandchildren from Brazil and Panama, I understand the disorientation of the question, where are you from? Where are you really from? Caroline Duffy captures this beautifully in her poem Originally, exploring how our sense of origin becomes complicated over time, how accent and belonging shift like unstable ground. So the poets will explore, transform this question into something richer, not where are you from, but how do you carry multiple homes within you? Hmm? Now, this brings us to what the scholar Homi Bhabha calls the third space. This is a site of cultural hybridity where multiple cultures intersect, and thus new cultural identities begin to form. When our students navigate, for example, between Urdu at home and English at school, or watch Korean dramas while studying Shakespeare, they are not switching between separate worlds. They are creating something new, something that is uniquely their own. When Warsan Shires writes, "No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark," she's using English to express truths it wasn't originally designed to hold. This is revolutionary. It's decolonizing the language from within, showing students that English can be remolded to carry their stories. Now, think about your classrooms. How many students translate for parents or code switch between friends and family, dream in multiple languages? Maybe you yourselves find yourselves in these situations. These students are already experts in cultural navigation. When they see, for example, Juan Felipe Herrera's bilingual poems, Shire's refugee narratives, they recognize their linguistic agility as strength, not as a deficit. And this connects with what Kenyan writer Ngui wa Thiong'o teaches us about language and power. Language isn't neutral. It carries history, assumptions, and worldviews. This also connects with Paulo Freire's critical pedagogy, helping students read the world as well as read the word. We are not just teaching vocabulary, we are helping students recognize that literature isn't something that happens elsewhere to other people. They can question whose stories get told and why certain voices have been historically excluded. So Let's meet the poets, some voices from the borderlands. Let me introduce some key voices who demonstrate this transformation. For example, Ocean Vuong, he weaves Vietnamese words into American verse like windows into another world, showing how trauma and beauty can exist in translation. His work demonstrates that leaving words untranslated is not a liability. It's insistence that some experience remain irreducible. Mm. Momtaza Mehri captures the exhausting creativity of code switching, revealing how young immigrants constantly translate themselves. Her line here, my tongue left Somali in the kitchen, maps the geography of linguistic identity that your students navigate daily. Juan Felipe Herrera, the first Mexican-American U.S. poet laureate, creates poems where Soy el puente doesn't need translation because the bridge is the meaning. His refusal to choose between language models, the fluid border crossing your bilingual students perform every day. Inualams transforms linguistic isolation into powerful imagery, comparing his multilingual tongue to a Yoruba talking drum beating words that echo in uncomprehending spaces. His work captures that specific moment many immigrant students know when you realize your home language marks you as different while affirming these untranslatable rhythms make English poetry richer. So these poets show students that struggling to translate between languages might be where their most original poetry begins. So let's have a look at how we can apply this, to bring this into our classrooms. Mm. And I'm going to show you a few activities that work across levels, for example, A2, B2. It's the untranslatable word gallery. Yes, it's very simple, but it can be quite profound. Yeah. So students share one word from their native language with no direct English equivalent. For example, saudade in Portuguese, or morrinha in Gallego, and so many other words. So, for example, if you take saudade or morrinha, it's not just missing something. There's more in that. So what they do is in pairs, they explain not just the definition, but the feeling associated with the words. This peer work reduces anxiety while practicing explanation skills. Then they can write all the words on the board or on the poster and make a large visible celebration of the class's linguistic wealth. This validates everybody's linguistic treasure before any creative pressure. Then we can have the bridge to poetry. Here's the crucial moment. Model transformation. Take, for example, the Portuguese word saudade and show. In Portuguese, we have a word that means missing something that might never return. But in English, we can also only say, I miss you, which perhaps is not heavy enough. So this shows students their explanations are already poetry. They just need the line breaks. Then you can provide stems, sentence stems, like, for example, my grandmother's word for blah, blah, blah sounds like, etc. In one's language, we have a word that means, so these sentence stems allows students to mix language naturally, and the progression moves from collective sharing, which is quite safe, to personal creation, with gallery words as both inspiration and permission. So one student may write, when I'm angry, I think in Arabic because English is too polite for my rage. That's what happens to me when I am angry. When I am really angry, I use curse words in Spanish, although I'm bilingual in English, because I really feel that English swear words are too polite, except for the F word, perhaps. Hmm? Another practical application, yes, is mirror poems. That is, comparing uh, poems across cultures. Yes, so it helps students see how different poets tackle similar experiences across cultures and generates, in my experience, the richest discussions. So, um, for example, you can use Warsonshire's Home and pair it with Amanda Gorman's The Hill We Climb, or Chigoni's Sunbright Elegance and Ocean Wong's Aubade with Burning City. Yes? For example, take Warsonshire's poem and Amanda Gorman's. Both are about belonging, but one from the refugee experience and the other from a young Black American claiming her space. And the contrast illuminates both poems. So before your students even see the poems, prepare them emotionally and intellectually for this. I always start with something like, these poems contain difficult truths about leaving home, about not fitting neatly into boxes. If something resonates with you personally, that's not coincidence. It's the power of poetry to speak across experiences. So, um, instead of, that is, a few tips. Don't analyze literary devices, please. Let them experience the poem. As I said, give them connection prompts. Provide a word bank with emotions and experiences and pre-teach concepts if necessary. Here I have some examples of connection prompts. Yes? So they can look at the poems and establish a comparison. You can also give them questions to help them. For example, find lines where the poet explains who they are. Do they sound certain or uncertain? Circle words that seem specific to the poet's culture. Or does this poem show home, America, Britain differently from textbooks? So they can make notes, yes, and looking at the questions, yes, and discussing this in small groups or in pairs, yes, and you can give them more questions to guide this exploration, to guide the annotation process. So how do the poets represent identity, migration, and belonging, for example? Scaffold the questions heavily. Yes, depending on the level of your students, you can provide more scaffolding. Um, also, for example, with Shire's a powerful line, no one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. Ask the students, what does home usually feel like? What does a shark's mouth feel like? Why does the poet establish this comparison? This isn't about getting the right answer. It's about feeling the desperation that drives migration in many cases. For example, what cultural references, images, or languages are used? You can reformulate a question and ask them to circle words or images that seem to come from the poet's culture or experiences. This might be the names of places, the names of foods, untranslated words, descriptions that feel personal rather than universal. Uh, then You have the discussion process, the discussion magic. Start with feeling which line stuck with you. This validates the emotional response as legitimate understanding. Then the comparison. Hmm? Put Shire's definition next to Gorman's. What conversation are they having? Students might say that Shire shows home as something that she has lost, while Gorman rebuilds it. Both are valid readings. Let them share freely their perceptions of the poem. Um, for A2 students, you can provide specific lines to examine the poem with glossaries of concepts, not just words. Yes, work with excerpts, not with full poems. For B2, for example, they can independently work and scan the poems and handle full poems. Still, choose poems that are not very long because it can really be overwhelming for some students. So, what happens when students do this sort of job? They discover that being British or American isn't one thing. When Chingonyi writes about wearing some bright elegance to fit in, your Nigerian British student or Nigerian Portuguese or Nigerian Spanish student suddenly has language for their own code switching. Migration stories encompass language, identity, trauma, resilience, not just geography. English can hold all these experiences, yes, and end by having students write one question for each poet. And these questions often reveal a profound understanding of the poem. Um, so when we bring these poets into our classrooms, we are not just teaching literary devices. We are helping students recognize that literature isn't something that happens elsewhere. We're showing them that good English doesn't mean erasing their mother tongues. These poems challenge what Chimamanda Adichie calls the danger of a single story, the reduction of people to one-dimensional narratives. Remember, we are not just teaching poetry, we are opening spaces where all our students' languages and experiences are valued as essential parts of their English learning journey. When students learn to read across cultures like this, they are not just improving their English, they are becoming global citizens who understand that every story, including their own, is part of a larger human conversation. So here you have some references that I think can be quite useful. And there are lots and lots of resources out there. So I encourage you to exploit poetry from this angle with your teenage and older students and more advanced students. And you will be able to open a whole world to them. The untranslatable words your students carry, the bridges they build between languages daily, the way they navigate multiple identities, they are not challenges to overcome, but the very source of creative power. And our role is to help them see it. So, I'd love to hear your thoughts and your questions and how you might adapt these approaches to your specific contexts. What challenges do you anticipate? What possibilities excite you? If you wish, you can send me a message. You can write a comment here under this video in the YouTube channel. But let me know about that. It's interesting to share experiences and notes about what they have done. So, this is all for today. Thank you very, very much, and see you the next time. And don't forget, click on the bell to be updated on the newest videos that I upload. So see you the next time. Bye.